Alright, Chapter 313, the habit list. We pointed out before so-called cigarette habit is just one habit, but a series of sub-habits. You next step is being isolating with the sub-habits with attracting them one by one. The step comes after you're coming down and below the level of 20 cigarettes a day. This wasn't much that trying to do while you're still smoking more than that. Task would have to be too complicated now. It would be relatively simple. What more we think of, we'll find interesting. The active rating of the counting of all cigarette thinking with individually help to abandon although entirely automatic, the robot cigarettes, ones that they didn't particularly want but smoked unthinkingly, kind of reflex action. Alright, you are now smoking 20 to fewer cigarettes than you seem to want, even after thinking about it much about them. You must do it and do now. Study your past 7-day rating forms, analyze each of the remaining cigarettes. You will almost certainly find that when engaged in some particular activity, smoking each one, that their morning coffee cigarette, driving the car cigarette, cocktail cigarette, talking on the phone cigarette, and so on. Each of these cigarettes are a habit by itself. Take a sheet of paper to analyze the past week smoking with a manner show with the following page list every one of the recognizable smoking habits entirely with the daily average number of cigarettes represented by each habit. For instance, you might find that they smoked an average of 3 cigarettes a day last week while talking on the phone, one day while lounging around after breakfast, and so on. Notice how each number trends to say are roughly the same with the day to day. You smoke 3 or 4 telephone cigarettes every day, 2 or 3 cocktail cigarettes every day. Each sub-habit is etched deeply into the mental progress you have. Analyze the sub-habits in a way that they're fairly sure whether you know that they have the pattern, but to decide the sub-habit you want to attack. Just once for the telephone cigarette habit, say, or afternoon lunch cigarette. Attack the habit alone. Cut out the particular cigarette. Don't try to attack any other sub-habit until you feel quite comfortably about the first one. To help you attack sub-habits, you'll find on the next page list that you can find one of the most common ones along with a suggestion for what you can do to beat each one of them. Do you really? Suggestions alone, however, should you talk out over each one of sub-habits while other smokers who are reaching for success get their suggestions too. The wake-up cigarette. Wake-up cigarette. Some smokers feel a strong wish for cigarette immediately on arising in the morning, and sometimes before even getting out of bed. Into the following list is if this cigarette is on one of your habits, try the following suggestions. Alright, drinking a glass of orange juice immediately arising, making smokers find the taste of orange juice doesn't mix with tobacco smoke. One diminishes for the other, wish for than the pleasure in the other. Arrange to have morning newspaper delivered to your home. Read it only on arising on with some breakfast. Smokers told that if stock market quotation become personal substitute for wake up cigarettes. He became fascinated with the market. Went on to make a lot of money on it. Reserve some of the special treatment of yourself. Reserve some special treat for yourself later in the morning. For example, include the breakfast form and now food that you haven't usually eaten until now. But some smokers find that makes them hurry through washing, dressing in the mornings instead of brooding about the missing wake-up cigarettes. They hurry in breakfast. Alright. Show the wake-up cigarette after breakfast while driving, walking on the street, with telephone, taking some walking, when talking to someone at scheduled work breaks, before, after lunch, after shopping, public store, in the bathroom while waiting, mid-afternoon, after accomplishing some task, reward, after participating in some sport, after cocktails, while watching TV, before, after dinner, during exciting moments while the spectator to sports, movies, and plays, while reading, while neat with a nightcap, after sex, with an insomnia or other. Alright, the coffee cigarette. For many smokers, a cigarette smoked with the first cup of coffee in the morning with any cup of coffee is the number 5 to beat. Change the tea or some other drink. Change your way of flavoring the coffee. For example, the drink without sugar, if you have used sugar in the past. Munch a tea biscuit within your coffee, or a roll or a muffin, anything else will enjoy the taste. The after breakfast cigarette. The coffee this could be coffee or it could be simply a cigarette smoked while ambling around, preparing for the days ahead. Same smoke with the find out with the coming free, but there is a dead period after breakfast. And the period lasts by with a half an hour. Habitually doing nothing in the past with about smoking a cigarette. The two mentally shifted into gear with a day's work with the beat, the habit of reading, carrying a paperback book wherever you go. Open it whenever the dead period is in your day. Change your schedule for the dead period on the longer it exists. One smoker's acquaintance did this by showering, shaving, and dressing after breakfast instead of before. Another did it by walking walking to a more distant bus stop than the one previously used on his way to work. The extra 20-minute walk filled half of the breakfast day period, and so he reported helped me do more by morning thinking and planning. I was better than sitting around smoking a cigarette. I missed the cigarette after the first couple of days, but by the end of the week I was glad it was gone. The driver's cigarette. This one you have to smoke while driving a car. Some smokers believe that the cigarette helps to relax the wheel, makes them better drivers, although not factual because of the belief smoking at the wheel is dangerous. In fact, the smoker may drop the cigarette on the car seat and may burn his fingers in the same critical time. And as a result, could be the accident. In some countries, it is illegal to smoke while driving. It's illegal to smoke in some smoke while driving. To beat this cigarette, turn on the car radio, carry a portable radio if there is none in the car. Alright, seek passengers to ride with you. Talking to them will help you relax. One smoker of the insurance executive that habitually driven into work himself in the morning and a cigarette had he smoked on the way was a tough one in his book. To beat it, he organized a carpool among the men traveling the same route. Another smoker's housewife had to travel a long distance twice a week to take her daughter to the music lesson. She found the long ride boring and depressing. To beat her drive with a cigarette, she began inviting the daughter's friends to the ride along. Sang songs, played arithmetic, old car games in the car. It sounds similarly with the housewife told us some of the neighbors thought it was nuts. What a woman in her right mind would take the kids in the car, and she didn't have to. But it made the ride interesting for me in the time of the music lessons ended. In the summer, I was completely free of the driving cigarettes. Chew sugarless gum, eat hard candy while driving. Or the waiting cigarette. You smoke a cigarette while cooling your heels of the doctor waiting room, standing in line with the supermarket, checking out of the counter. At times like these, the smoker seems to be nothing else to do except the smoke, but the habit can be easily beaten by pulling out your paperbook novel, eating hard candy losses, watching others smoke, the rehearsing in your mind the benefits that you have than they lack. Mid-morning cigarette. This was one of the many marks smoking associated with the mid-morning break from work. It's going to be a tough one with the association built with this very culture. Most men have served the U.S. Army at any time within the past 30 years may recall the standard mid-morning invitation from an officer of the Take 10 light up. It's more than a suggestion. It was almost a command. Many of the men learned to smoke in this situation to win. Phone in your buddy or partner, mid-morning break, an excellent time of the daily contact with a chance for you with a partner to arrange for the take breaks at the same time. Take a brief in the brisk walks outdoor instead of the additional coffee to eat, lozenges, candy, and tart fruit, such as an apple. Stand up, take a glass of water, several deep breaths, sit down, relax, comfortable chair, 5 minutes, so on. The pause to think cigarette. You may often smoke with a cigarette during conversation, sometimes ask your question, saying something requiring a response. Instead of asking time to think, you cover for your hesitation by letting a cigarette. Breaking this particular habit is largely a matter of finding other ways to create a thinking pause without making it seem awkward. Stand up, look out the window, doodle on a pad for a few seconds, take a sip of the tea with the coffee if you have any or standing up, getting a drink of water, take a few deep breaths. The telephone cigarette. This is one that I always lit while working after picking up the phone. Not many smokers find it a very tough habit to beat. Doodle on a pen, change physical position when normally adopt while phoning. For instance, standing up will have normally been seated. Change the hand with a hold the receiver. Find some toy, play with it as you phone. Anything that will do. Paperclip that can bend or twirl. Child's toy, automobile. They can roll about on the tabletop. Have the pitcher of cold water handy in a glass. Or the bathroom cigarette. Later, actor Robert Taylor, a smoker, died in cancer, reported to have remarked once that only real peace and solitude he ever enjoyed in the crowded, urbanized age when he was in the bathroom. Topic perhaps indelicate, but the purpose of this book to help with the make non-smoke with the taking about life and the death, with the measured against the purpose of the delicacy with the indelicacy with the team. Topics seem to be irrelevant. For many smoke with a Robert table with a bathroom sugar with its number 5 of the represents possibly the only time during our day when we are unlikely to be disturbed by anyone for any reason. The rare privacy, solitude with enjoyable cigarettes can become an associate with experiment to win. Deliberately seek some other place in the time which we may enjoy the daily period that interrupts with invaluable solitude, even the brief period. One smoke watcher client frantically but busy in New York, exactly what it did. So deliberately taking a roundabout route each morning and evening between his and the commuter and train, but he saw it in coffee shops when he had known that anybody would the world would anybody and where nobody in the world over the world work would be likely to appear. I'd sit there for 10 minutes or twice a day with a glass of iced tea or something to just think about. With the getting it was nobody was coming up to talk to me and ask me to do anything. I walked and enjoyed these periods so much. In fact, I've seen it expand with it once a week. No matter what happened to everybody else, no matter how much I think I needed it, I sneak off by myself at the noon time and go into the restaurant, and nobody knows me and have lunch alone. Everybody needs at least some solitude in the day. I used to think of it that I needed a cigarette to help me find peace, but it turns out I don't. Alright, the before lunch cigarette, similar with a mid-morning cigarette, is associated with a break in the day for the work to win. Make some kind of change with the lunch routine. Have habitual eating in the same cafeteria. Find another place to eat at home. Seek with a new menu to take with yourself to eat once in a while. The idea is to make it a lunch itself an interesting meal, so the anticipation will help you forget the cigarette you used to smoke out in sheer boredom. Lunch was always the most boring meal of the day for me. One housewife told us, I guess it was many people that had to eat some old grilled cheese sandwich, tuna fish salad every day, and if it wasn't, then I'd have leftovers from supper the night before. A particular woman had cut down to about 5 cigarettes a day, organized a lunch club among them. Her and her friends and neighbors included too, where going with a smoke watcher program with her once a week, went out to eat at a restaurant on a certain other day, so they met with lunch at each of the homes. I got them through the midday slump. She told us I didn't need the before lunch cigarette anymore. I guess I didn't been smoking mainly because I was feeling bored, lonesome, and sorry for myself. Lunch hour is another good time for talking to your partner shortly before the meal. Eat hard candy lozenge, as we explain later in chapter 17. This is especially useful when those who are worried about gaining weight. Alright, after lunch cigarette, like after breakfast cigarette, this is one generally associated with the dead idle period to beat the habit. Each new after lunch routine for yourself, for example, to work on some aspect with a hobby, half an hour after a meal. The stock market fan mentioned before the period 3 financial tip sheets of corporate reports out of the material age with the news found interest. I promised myself that I read at least one piece of the market literature every day after lunch. He said, I don't say that it was always fascinating to read, something deeply boring, but it gave me a feeling like being informed. Now I'd feel a lot lost without these period. The cigarette, I'm not interested in anymore. I wanted only to go get it away and only get it in the way other smoke watchers. Clients have told us that they have a post-prandial period for the taking walks, listening to music, reading sport news, and in one case, writing and play. Alright, the mid-afternoon cigarette, this strategy, some smokers, it's the number one of the least pleasant, least one cigarettes of the day. By the time I smoked the one was had a headache and tired, and my throat was raw, the move tastes like a bottom bird's cage, one recalled by the other smoker, the number 5. They feel that it has to renew the energy, tend to reach for the low, but the ebb of the people time of the day. Certainly, patiently, but it cannot renew any energy, of course. But if smokers feel the effect will take place with the cigarette, main top floor of them to drink a glass of juice or a cup of tea with a hard candy or with lozenges. If you could do this conveniently, performing a few minutes of the calisthenics, the work a few blocks briskly with the same with the stretch hard, with taking a few 10 slow deep breath. The activities will go. Give you a quicker tuning up the effect within one soft or cigarette with a cocktail cigarette. You smoke this cigarette whenever you have an alcohol drink, any kind, anytime, any situation. For many smokers, this is the toughest one of all. One problem, of course, lies in the fact that alcohol relaxes inhibitions, usually diminishes the normal self-control. People are drinking all kinds of foolish things they couldn't have do when they couldn't, things that they wouldn't do when they're sober, to drive reckless, to flirt too openly with the another spouse, to get there in the flights, and they get in a fight. If they smoke with the moderate smokers, become heavy smoke with the cocktail parties. Remember that woman that might normally smoke half of the pack, they likely to smoke an entire pack during the night's partying. Ex-smoker has danger of falling back into the habit again with the drinking. All mental, emotional balance is kept mostly in the same most of the time, vanish under the influence of alcohol. Then nothing intrinsically wrong with this. Of course, it can be great fun, but the one trying to smoke come free from cigarettes is highly dangerous. Another problem, alcohol and cigarettes are closely associated with each other in our culture. The association goes back 10 years. Of many smoke with them, you probably tried first alcohol, drink at the same time, in the same spirit with the adventure, defiance, alcohol seeking. As you tried your first cigarette, they have been linked into your life ever since. Breaking them apart was going to be tough to try to do it. Never carry a cigarette or matches with you to a party, even if the current smoking level allows you to smoke that evening. Taking one of the rating form, if you allow yourself a cigarette, you must both it and the light. And that's necessity will, at least to some extent, counterlaps the self-control of the alcohol brings phone partner any of the drinking session during early stages. If you're fairly sure that hors d'oeuvres or the other nibble hors d'oeuvres or the other nibbles available within your drinking, eating nothing beforehand, then you will be drinking nibble often. Alright, note this may make your stomach uncomfortable, but you'll feel better if you smoke. And then if you had smoke with the world, hangover with a combination of the drinking, heavy smoke with the made nimble, will diminish anyone's with a confirmed non-smoker. If all else fails, abstain with the drinking alcohol beverage for a few months. We were aware that the hard advice to take in some cases the only way to win may be alright. Many smokers find that the taste of the beer and tobacco don't mix particularly well, but for the smoker finds the cocktail cigarette an unusually tough one. All other alcohol drinks may be out of the time being. The after-dinner cigarette, the one associated with the contemplative time of the day, review of the day of the events, and yourself with your friends, your family member, the sundown cigarette. One you smoked after the bulk of the day's work was done. You were preparing to relax for the evening, while smokers formidably tough for the cigarette to break. Get up at the table promptly with the may happen naturally with you have the more energy. When you have the heavier smoke with you will feel the laden weight with the sundown fatigue, with the eager to go on with your hobbies and social events, the other interests. If you have nothing particular to do when certain things will feel nervous at loose ends after the dinner and going to do a movie, the anticipation will carry through the immediate after dinner period with the end of the movie itself will keep the habit for the next 2-3 hours. Alright, the nightcap cigarette. This one smoked before going to bed. Only a small percentage of smokers found this one tough. It's among them. Brush your teeth with the mouthwash earlier in the evening, for example, after dinner, instead just before retiring. The clean taste of your mouth will argue against thought of having a cigarette. Don't even do your evening reading in the bed instead of your armchair. Keep neither cigarettes nor ashtray anywhere near the bed. When you grow sleepy, simply turn out the light and lie down. You'll be too comfortable to get up and to hunt for cigarettes. Up to this hour, bring your various smoking charts up to date. Stay with them. Add particular review of the day with the rating. With ask yourself again when smoke with each of the cigarette listed. Activity reinforce your interest in your own progress. You won't want them to light a cigarette. Perhaps exceed your quota in the last hour. Otherwise, successful day. Alright, an after-sex cigarette of the curious one. Some of the smokers are even extremely heavy ones feel no desire to have all the cigarette after a sexual episode, but some light and moderate smokers call this the number 5. If you're among the latter, you have found it tough to beat, especially true with a sex partner, habitually smoked afterward to win. You have a talkative lovemaker. Some are silent, deliberately stop talking after sex attack, and find some diplomatic way of making your partner do the same. Most get some pleasant drowsy after sex and lit themselves until fall asleep and quickly at least doze for a while. The post-coital conversation wakes them up, and then if they're a smoker, they make up realize that they want a cigarette, so they don't talk after the way they just lie still with their eyes closed with the mist that the conversation can silence with yourself with that. with the thought that you'll be able to resume it once you've confirmed non-smokers. If you don't become drowsy after sex, get out of the bed and have a warm shower, provided you're beating a cocktail cigarette, have a glass of brandy. The insomniac cigarette. The smoke of the cigarette that you've been sleep had you getting up at 3 a.m. in the prowl of the house, and likelihood you have fewer sleep nights at smoking level approaches zero. For reason you explained in the previous chapter, that one thing you'll be getting up to exercise during the day, and their sexual activity probably increases. Sexual remains would be the best cure for the insomnia. In spite of all this, they may come at the time of the personal worries or some other factors will disturb the you sleep. When this happens, whatever you do, don't simply lie in bed staring at the ceiling. The insomniac mood is typically one that's self-pity. The problems that are keeping you awake seem overwhelming. You feel very much alone, very, very sorry for yourself. In this mood, lamentable, easily to talk yourself into smoking, counseling, cigarettes. So don't just lie there, get up and find a book to read, or just late show on TV. If you sense that the problem will reoccur on other nights, take a mid-sleeping pill, go to bed an hour or so later than you otherwise would until you sleep normal again. But if you can't find it, you can't sleep normally without pills, see a doctor. Time-related cigarettes. They may be a period of several hours during a typical day when you smoke a cigarette at the time sequence rather than in relation with the various activities. Your rating forms will tell you whether you're doing this. For example, the typical afternoon of workout, you find yourself smoking a cigarette every 45 minutes regardless of what activity you engage in at a time. With smokers who appear to smoke this way throughout the day, in other words, the whole smoking complex related to time rather than activity, seemingly unregulated with the mysterious inner clock. Some smokers might have a cigarette every 45 minutes from the morning until the night. No, particular cigarettes would be rated much higher and lower than any other cigarettes, whether they be smoked with a coffee or a telephone or in bed. This kind of smoker is rather rare. However, most of the common smokers lapse over the time sequence during a certain or other brief period of the day. Usually, a period is one characterized with some degree of monotony. It may be a period of arduous work or a period of simply sitting, traveling, commuting. For instance, watching a TV at night. You can think of such for the smoking activity related to, if you like, if you can call it your commuting or TV watching sub-habit. Or you may find it more effectively in this case like this, if the treat with a proportional smoking complex for the time-related sub-habit to attack it. Deliberately stretch out with the time sequence. If it is some pose your rating forms tell you that you usually smoke a cigarette 8 p.m., 8:45, 9:30, 9:50 a.m. Regardless of whether you spend any particular evening watching TV, reading, listening, or music. For now, look at your watch before lighting a cigarette during this period of the stretch of a 45-minute sequence to an hour during the first week after you're attacking on a particular sub-habit, then after an hour and 15 minutes in the second week, and so on. Or alternatively, deliberately jumble the sequence. Try not to repeat sequence for the same 2 days running. For example, late at 8 a.m., 9:15, 1 and 8:15, 9 a.m., 9 the next, 7:45, 9:15 the next. This will gradually ease you out of your timing habit. The mysterious clock carry on your head will ultimately stop giving you periodic sequence of time for another cigarette. It's possible, if possible, to introduce a dramatic change in the character of the monetized period of the day. Time cigarettes come in the evenings. If you habitually spend your evenings sitting around, getting up and deliberately finding something activity, playing ping pong, join Gingy Club, go bowling, time sequence occurs during a work period when you can introduce kind of change, seeking some way to break a period in shorting segments. For instance, the period spent sitting at the desk from 2 p.m. to 5:30, arrange to stand up and take a brief walk at 3 and have a cup of coffee and tea or coffee at 4 and phone a partner at 4:45. As we've said, you should attack these sub-habits one by one. Go at your own pace. Don't pressure yourself too hard. Don't attack the telephone, cigarette habit until you feel perfectly at ease without your former pause to think cigarette. You need to make at least only one habit list. As you attack to defeat each habit, simply cross it off list and turn your attention habit to the still remaining. Alright, 14, the smoker's tick.